Welcome to One Man's Tracks for another second-hand music review. This week I've stumbled upon a really interesting and somewhat mysterious post-punk and indie rock group that was fronted by the founder of Omnium Music Group and Captured Tracks label, Mike Sniper. His band was called Blank Dogs, and it was founded back in 2007 when he was about 28. But I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory on the guy. He's got a really dense resume full of musical twists and turns that led him to where he is today, but let's get him to the point where he just started Blank Dogs to begin with. Born on the Jersey Shore, he played a little bit of drums here and there. I believe he graduated from art school, but then dropped out while he was getting a history degree. He based himself out of Brooklyn, worked in a number of music stores, worked with a bunch of bands on their artwork, and was in a couple of bands himself, like the Zodiacs and the DC Snipers, some punk rock vibes, some psych rock vibes, just kind of the things he wanted to be hearing. And out of a frustration of not getting the stuff he wanted to hear, he formed the Blank Dogs as this kind of DIY solo outfit back in 2007. While it only lasted for a few years, during those years, what started out as this home recording project turned into something much bigger as Blank Dogs grew in popularity in the indie scene. He had a plethora of releases through a number of indie labels, and that kind of grew his confidence to start his very own label. In 2008, he founded Captured Tracks, sold off a rare power pop collection on eBay, and funded the first few releases through that record label, his very own Blank Dogs, as well as I believe the first from the Dum Dum Girls. Now we're at the point, he's got his label established, the band's got some momentum, he's got friends in the industry, he signs with In the Red Records to release the album that introduced me to this ambitious, very cool and creative collector of diverse sounds. Released in May of 2009, only the second full-length LP from Blank Dogs. Here's Under and Under. This record is so full and tough to pin down, sometimes feeling like it's taking a counterintuitive path to achieve its goals, but still achieving those goals nonetheless. Burying these lovely psych pop melodies behind just walls of distortion and low fidelity recording techniques. They have these catchy guitar riffs and bass lines that are slathered between these noisy electronic layers. The mixing is done in such a neat way that lends to this album's unique ambiance, as well as its really just far out sonic structure. Sniper's eclectic listening habits lead to some really fun stylistic crossovers where he blends garage rock, power pop, trippy bass lines, new wavy synths, shoegaze aesthetics, all into this special ethereal post-punk medium. It's like a dusty sunbeam. There's always lots to observe, but nothing quite tangible to actually get a grip on. It's hazy, gritty, moving, but you still pass right through it without feeling any resistance. A truly enchanting and obscured album with these strong emotions hidden behind a fuzzy, trippy filter, leaving me with a complicated emotion of aloofness and pleasant detachment. It's got a lot to offer inside, and I'm going to dig a little deeper now into these enchanting tracks that I really have difficulty grasping fully, but also can't get out of my head. And let's get into the experimental rock opener, No Compass, that is just this unique vibe all in itself, with throwback surf rock guitars, unintelligible, obscured lyrics, this cartoony Scooby-Doo vibe that haunts it. It might sound a little goofy or spooky, but I think it's a bop, and it's a great way to introduce the record. Squeaky synths creep in and herald the arrival of the goth punk track L Machine, a somewhat schizophrenic, or at least very self-conscious song that grooves along well, but tries to distract you with these pitched up guitar wails, clinking cutlery, breaking glasses, and this obsessive fixation on repetitive thoughts. The Vivian Girls then provide backing vocals for a much softer song called Night Night. It does still manage to carry some of that almost Halloween-y aesthetic, but is far more uplifting than its predecessors. Unfortunately, without being able to understand the lyrics here, I do struggle to find meaning in this lighter, shoegazy lullaby. Open Shut has one of the clearest and catchiest vocal hooks. It's open and shut, it's over and done with. The shoegazy effects and soaring keyboard passage lends these simple words deeper meaning, and it leaves this track with a very satisfied sentiment. Now, the UK synth pop vibes are in full force on Setting Fire to Your House. It's a great example of Mike's meticulous minimalism, where each element does seem quite simple on its own, but when it's all blended together, it creates a very full and satisfying mix. There's a tremendous, infectious, and ominous bass line that leads around the room, alongside this complimentary guitar riff that's fantastic, and those uncertain, ever-distorted vocals. They just keep coming together so masterfully here, and we're still just picking up steam. Blue Lights keeps up the slightly frantic pace and disorienting atmosphere. This track feels like it sits somewhere in between maybe a Tropical Fuckstorm and a King Gizzard song, but with a more detached and disconnected air to the whole performance. The fleeting nature of this whole track list up to this point feels like it compounds the more you try to focus in and pick apart these tracks, and honestly, I think it's best to just allow this album to wash over you a few times before you even try to pick apart any meaning. Otherwise, you'll be in a kind of anxious state as it passes on and you feel like you're missing out. Just enjoy it. Piling further on, The New Things buries a beautiful indie pop jam underneath this buzzing microphone effect and electric guitars. I'm pretty sure the Vivian Girls are backing this one too, but it's hard to tell behind all that distortion. Still, somehow this track does manage to endear itself, even though besides these pleasant tones, I can't really understand why. Moving on to a nice complementary pair of tracks, Falling Back, that flows into Tin Birds. They're both these languorous indie psych rock crooners that feel both familiar and strangely foreign. Another one of these weird dichotomies that pops up on this album. Then we move on to Slowing Down, that has this slower, soaring, reverberating kind of XX type atmosphere that brings a more subdued and spacey feel to this one. I feel like Face Watching is a track that is really well set up. It's got a fun 80s synth rock vibe, but the vocals are just too grating to the point that they're distracting here. The mix just feels so gritty. It's like a Velcro scratching up against my skin rather than this intangible beam of light that I've been trying to grasp at this whole time. It doesn't really match its surrounding tracks, and for that, I just tend to skip it and move on to the next. I do feel like skipping it's warranted when Books falls right in line with Slowing Down. It's more joyful, but still lazy, but also gets you jumping at the same time. It's a great vibe. I wish I could make out the lyrics to this one to see if the words match the tone. It's just super catchy and has a great arc that pulls you right into it. Almost done now, the Vivian Girls return to ceremoniously bring out the closer with a celebratory, light-hearted sensation with the track Nothing UGC, then one last time helping out with a song that feels a bit like a slowed-down version of Open Shut from earlier. This one's called From Here. From what I can grasp from the lyrics, it feels almost like an acceptance or understanding washing over someone, maybe the character that was introduced in El Machine, coming to terms with their circumstances and ultimately realizing that it's gonna be alright. None of these tracks are all that long, but it does sure feel like a lot has been jammed into this album's 46 minutes. A genre-defying project. It pulls from so many lanes that I guess you could use post-punk as a decent catch-all term. Under and Under is perplexing and inspired, like pretty much everything I've found and listened to from Mike Sniper so far, especially under this Blank Dogs moniker. And if you want to listen to more, I've linked a few more of the albums down below, alongside that Collected by Itself compilation album that I think is phenomenal, and I would love to find one of these days, but I don't think it's all that likely, so it might actually end up being one of the very first online album purchases I make. Oh, I know, heaven forbid. I guess I did end up finding this, so it can't be totally hopeless. I won't bite the bullet quite yet, but some things disappear forever if you don't buy them, and I know that, so I don't know, maybe I'm rolling the dice. Either way, I'd like to go over a few more details that I kind of skipped over in the intro about Mr. Sniper here, like the fact that that's not his real name. I don't know what his real name is. Maybe the fact that he was friends with so many other label owners, like Larry from In the Red. He actually worked as a bit of an A&R guy for him, just kind of for free, and got a few cool artists signed to that label. I think he was friends with Mike from Troubleman Records. He started his label, Captured Tracks, in the very same basement that Sacred Bones was started, Caleb Bratton's label. They worked in the same record store, and that basement was where they got it all going. Oh man, he's just been so prolific in the indie scene and had his hands in so many different avenues and just opened up this incredible new lane of music that I know very little about. So thank you, Mr. Sniper, and I appreciate it. He's gathered so many labels together that by 2014 he was forced to found the Omnian Music Group as this way of branching out and reaching more artists and different sounds without diluting the Captured Tracks or the 8 or so other sister labels that are associated under that Omnian musical umbrella. I think he also owns a pair of record stores, so he'll just continue to pursue the musical fascinations wherever they lead him, it seems. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this or anything Mike Sniper related down in the comments. Go check out his many labels and tell me your favorite artist that he's helped sign. Like the video if you've made it this far, and subscribe if you haven't already. Here's a couple more reviews I think you'll find fascinating as well, and maybe I'll tease next week's review right over here somewhere. Check it out. Get excited. I'll see you next week, guys. Thanks so much for watching.